All right, we're going to begin seated. And if you would rather sit at the edge of a chair, you're more than welcome to do that. Or if you want to get a pillow or a blanket to place underneath your sits bones, just to lift those sits bones a little bit. Sometimes that helps our hips kind of relax and our low back to not collapse. So if you find yourself on the floor and you notice that your back is sort of softening or curving, or that your hips feel tight, that's a good sign that elevating the sits bones might be a good idea. All right, and just taking a few moments here just to kind of become centered, bringing your thoughts inward. There's a definition of mindfulness that says mindfulness is being present without judgment in every moment. So being present, being here and in this space and in the present moment, withholding judgment, which I love for a yoga practice because we can often sort of compare our practice to the people around us, and or maybe we're not comparing to people around us. Maybe we're just being critical of what our body or our mind are bringing to our mat on that particular day, and it might be something different than what your expectations might be. So just withholding that judgment, and then in every moment. So I invite you in this practice today into mindfulness, into being present, fully present, withholding judgment in every moment. Just beginning to bring your awareness to the breath, drawing the inhale in through the nose and out through the nose. Becoming aware of what the breath is doing and how it feels. And if you notice that the breath is shallow and maybe only entering the top portion of the chest, then invite that breath deeper. Fill up the entirety of the lungs, the chest, and then all the way down into the belly. Taking nice, full, complete inhales and exhales. And we'll just begin to flow our gaze out over one shoulder. Inhale, taking a breath or two here as you gaze out over one shoulder. And then back to center and taking the gaze out over the other shoulder, breathing here. To center. And then notice here that the ears are stacked on top of the shoulders. So instead of having our head way out into tomorrow, bring it into today, tucking that chin and nose back so those ears are right over the shoulders. And then from that stacked position, taking the chin down to the chest, dropping the gaze down. Taking a full breath here. Back to that tucked in, stacked position, and then lifting the chin high, gazing up towards the sky. Position, ears stacked over shoulders as you come back to center and then down towards the floor one more time in each direction. Back to center, ears stacked on top of shoulders, and then back up to the sky. Very nice. We'll begin flowing our arms here. Inhale as the arms come up overhead. Gaze can look up past those fingertips here. And then exhale, release the arms down beside the hips, allowing the gaze to drop down towards the floor. And we'll flow with our own breath. So your pace does not have to match mine. It can be slower or faster, just allowing your breath to be your guide. Really reaching out through those fingers. Inhale the arms back up to the sky. Let's press the palms together and then take those fingertips down the spine. Dropping the gaze slightly. Breathing here. Inhale all the way up. And exhale, releasing the arms down. Good. We're going to keep our right hand down beside our right hip and inhale our left arm high. Exhaling into a side bend. So if you're in a chair here, you might have that right hand on the side of your chair. If you're on the floor, that right hand can find the floor. And then maybe looking up under that left arm as you breathe deeply. We tend to hold our breath in lateral bends. So we want to be mindful here to keep breathing deeply, inviting the breath down through that left side. Inhale to center as you sit up tall and exhale, releasing it down. Left hand finds that chair or the side, the floor there on the left side. Inhale, right arm high and exhale into that side bend. Maybe the gaze looks up under that right arm or it can stay neutral, just depending on what feels best for your neck and spine. Breathing. Inhale as you sit up tall and exhale, releasing down. Good. Let's inhale both arms up high again. Inhale, look up towards the sky and exhale, release the hands down. And now we're going to go into a spinal twist. So we'll inhale our arms high again. And then as we exhale, take that left arm across the body, finding that right knee. That right arm can just come behind you and it can either rest on the floor or the chair, or it can find the back of that right hip and just rest on the low back. Gazing over that right shoulder, allowing the belly to rise and fall with the breath. Inhale brings you back to center. Float those arms up overhead. And exhale, twisting over to the left, that right arm coming across the body. And again, that left hand here can find the chair or the floor. Or if you're elevated, you might find it easier to place that left hand on the low back. Just gazing out over that left shoulder, breathing deeply. And the next inhale draws us back to center. Arms float up overhead. And now let's flow from side to side. So exhale, twisting over to the right, not forcing anything here. Inhale brings us back to center. Nice and fluid. Exhaling to the left and flowing with your own breath. Let's do one more to each side. Meeting back up at center here. And then we're going to fold straight forward. So keeping the spine nice and long, reaching up, drawing everything up towards the sky. We're going to hinge forward. So if you're in a chair, this will look very similar. Just hinging yourself forward, walking yourself maybe down the legs, or if you're on the floor, you're walking yourself forward on the mat and breathing here in this forward fold. Keeping the spine nice and long. Think about extending through the crown of the head. And then go ahead and walk those hands back up, sitting up tall. And then we're going to extend our legs straight out in front of us now, which you can do also from a chair. Just extend those legs straight and draw those toes back towards the nose. Sitting up tall again and creating some space in the front of the waist or the fronts of the hips here. Inhale and then exhale. Walk those hands down the legs. Again, thinking about keeping the spine nice and long. Inhale, lengthen, and exhale, soften. And there's just a nice fluid stretch here as we inhale, lifting and lengthening, and exhale, folding and softening into that space. So these might be little tiny micro adjustments that you make that, it might not even be visible to the eye, or you might feel good really being fluid here and sort of, this is a silly word, but it's a good word to describe it, undulating. There's a yoga instructor who I really love, but he uses that word a lot. Undulate the spine. I don't think I take myself quite seriously enough to use that word too often. Undulate the spine. Although it does really, it does work. Or the way I like to think about this stretch is like I'm sitting at the edge of the ocean, right? Which you're not supposed to have your back to the ocean. But if you did, and you let the waves wash over you, right? That undertow would kind of draw you back. And then that next wave would sort of wash you forward. And I like to think about that in these fluid stretches, kind of that drawing back and then that folding or washing forward. Good. Let's go ahead and walk our hands back up, sitting up tall. All right. Let's make our way down onto all fours. Or if you would rather stay like in a seated position on a chair, that is totally fine. You can still do a lot of these movements from a seated position, or maybe all of them. And if you're down on the floor, go ahead. If you have a blanket or a towel, or if you want to double up your mat just for some extra cushion underneath those knees, it's a great idea. Just noticing here that we're in a nice neutral position. Crown of the head is reaching straight forward, tailbone straight back. And then we're going to begin to flow through cat and cow as we tuck the chin to the chest and tuck the tailbone. The spine arches up towards the ceiling. And then as we inhale, we open up the heart and lift the sits bones high. Tucking the tailbone. And if you're in a chair, you might find it helpful to clasp the hands, pressing those palms forward as you arch the spine. And then inhale, open up the chest by taking those elbows back behind you, opening up the heart as you gaze up toward the sky. And then exhale, either taking the backs of the wrists together or interlacing those hands and pressing those palms away from you. But continuing to flow here through your cat and cow, whether seated or on all fours. Good. And then let's meet back up in that neutral position. And we're going to go into a thoracic rotation. So this is for our upper thoracic spine, which when we sit a lot, our thoracic spine becomes really stiff and tight. So this is a really good stretch. We're going to take our right fingertips to the back of our head and inhale, take that elbow and shoulder towards the sky, lifting the gaze up towards the sky. And then exhale, take that elbow through, like you're reaching it between that space between the wrist and the knee, reaching it through. Now, if you're in a chair here, you might want to come to standing next to your chair and place one hand on your chair. So I'm going to demonstrate here. So act like this is the seat of my chair. And then I'm taking this stretch all the way up to the sky and then all the way through. Good. Inhale it up and exhale it through. Very nice. Just breathing here. Remembering to withhold any judgment. There's no expectation in yoga practice that you look one certain way or feel one certain way in any given posture. Every time you come to your practice, it'll be a little different. You bring different things to the mat. Let's switch sides, taking those left fingertips to the back of the head. Inhale that elbow and shoulder to the sky. And then exhale, bring it through. Exhale out. Inhale all the way up. Good. Let's do one more on this side. And then meeting back up in that neutral position. And from here, we're going to tuck our toes and lift our hips high. And go ahead and pedal your legs out here. And again, if you're in a chair or you have a chair handy, your hands can be on the seat of your chair, legs out behind you, and just pedal those legs out. This isn't a perfect example because this would be a very short chair. Pedaling those legs out. Beautiful. And then we're going to make our way into a standing position. So if you're in downward facing dog, you might bend those knees and soften them as you walk the feet forward to the hands. Or if you're near a chair, just walking yourself into your chair. And then very, very slowly, we're going to peel up the spine, coming all the way up into a standing position. Our feet are hip width distance apart, or maybe even a little wider than hip width distance apart. Rolling our palms forward on our shoulder blades down and back. Good. We have a nice neutral pelvis here. So we notice that we're tucking our tailbone slightly, drawing those hip points together. Take a few moments here just to breathe. Good. And then begin to shake the arms, kind of loosening those arms, making them like little wet noodles. Good. And then begin to sway side to side, letting your wet noodle arms just flop side to side. You're going to kind of tap your body here. It's like a gong, you know? Like loose, I think of like that loose, right? Isn't that kind of like a, or I don't know. My grandma was really musical, and she had this instrument at her house that I always liked to play with. And you would hold the handle in your hand and you'd do this. And then the little leather straps had little balls on the end and they'd go, you know, you ever heard of those? My grandma had all kinds of, she loved percussion instruments and was a very musical woman. That was one of my favorites. So that's what we're like. I'll have to try to find one. All right, coming back to center. Good. All right, finding yourself. Let's just explore our feet. So notice bringing your weight over the ball of the foot and then taking your weight back over the heel of the foot. Exploring that space. And then again with the inside and outside of the foot, rolling the foot out towards the edge of the foot. We're in. Just exploring. And then finding your weight sort of centered over those points. Finding your weight centered. And then from here with our palms rolled forward, we're going to work on just transferring our weight. We're going to work on transferring all of our weight to that right leg, which means that left leg can come anywhere from like a kickstand position with the toe on the floor, or if you want more of a challenge, you can bring that left knee up to about a 90-degree angle, holding the core nice and tight. So again, anywhere from here to here to here is great. Finding that one point ahead of you to cast your gaze. And then we're going to very slowly lower that left foot back down. Take it about hip width distance or a little bit farther apart. And then transfer the weight onto that foot. Slowly bringing that right foot up to that kickstand position. Or for a little more of a challenge, you can lift that knee, keeping the core nice and tight. Breathing here. So anytime we're in a balancing posture, we remember that we're not trying to be statues. So we don't have to be completely motionless. Sometimes that little bit of like twinge or quiver or even like a swaying side to side can sort of startle us because we think of balancing as like, I'm holding this posture, but we're not statues. We're not meant to be. And so there should be some fluidity, and don't let that freak you out. Even if you come out a little bit and then need to come back in, that's great. Just working with what you have. And then we'll transfer the weight again. And again. Breathing. And we'll go one more time back onto that left leg. Breathe. Very nice. Back to both feet. Feet hip width distance apart. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, hands down to heart center. Press those palms together. Find that thumb in the center of the chest. And then from here, we're going to begin to sit down into chair. So send that weight back over the heels like you're sitting down in a chair, but don't go all the way down to your chair. Make those legs do the work. Good. We're squeezing those legs together here like we're pressing them towards one another. And then inhale to rise. Good. A little back bend here at the top. See if you can lift your gaze. Dig your big toes into the floor here. Lift your kneecaps up towards the sky. Good. Exhale, hands to heart center. Pressing the palms together as you sit back down into chair. Keeping the spine nice and long here, so we're still reaching through the crown of the head. We're not rolling through the upper back. We're keeping everything nice and long. Tuck the tailbone slightly. Good. All the way back up to that back bend. Press those big toes down into the floor. Squeeze the glutes. And then exhale, sit back down into your chair. This is our last one. Press the palms together. Breathe here. Inhale all the way up to back bend. Press those big toes into the ground. Squeeze the glutes. Look up at the sky. And exhale, hands passing down through heart center. Good. Softening them down beside the hips. Good. I'm going to grab a sip of water. You can grab one too if you need one. We have a couple more standing postures before we make our way down to the floor. All right. So from feet hip width distance apart, we're just going to take our left leg and step it back to a moderately wide position here. It might not be as wide as like a warrior two, but a moderate stance. And so our right toes are still pointed straight forward and our left toes are back at about 45 degrees. So our feet are not totally perpendicular to one another. Those left toes still have a little bit of a forward angle to them. And then we're just going to work on opening up that left hip. So we're rotating that left hip back towards the back edge of our mat. And then that front hip stays so that that right knee is still guiding out over those toes. So if you were to bend that front knee, it would go right out over the middle toes of that front foot. So there's this dynamic opening happening here in the hips. From here, let's lift our arms high and feel as though you're lifting up and out of your feet, like you're standing up really tall here. And then reach those right fingertips way out past the right toes. Let that left hip rock back towards the back of your hip. Or back of your mat, excuse me. And then cartwheel those hands down. So that right hand will just come down towards that right leg. Left arm reaches up towards the sky. And keep that right knee nice and soft. triangle pose, lifting up through those left fingertips. Your gaze can stay neutral here, or you can look up past that left hand. Breathing. Good. We're going to lift up through those left fingertips, lifting you all the way back up to standing, and take those hands back out to shoulder height. Good. From here, we're just going to rotate our toes. So we'll turn those right toes in towards the side of our mat. Left toes are going to rotate out. So now our left toes should be facing the back of our mat, or if that turned you like totally away from the screen, you can turn back towards the screen so you can see me. I guess that was silly. All right, but I like that transition. All right, so left toes pointed straight forward, right foot turned out at about 45 degrees. And then just notice here that left knee, if you were to bend that left leg, the toes would go right out over the middle toes of that left foot. And then straighten out that left leg and open up that right hip. So roll that right hip back towards the back edge of your mat. So nice opening here, and then lifting tall out of the feet, feeling really tall through the waist. Inhale, arms to shoulder height. Good. Reach those left fingertips way out over the left toes, sending that right hip back, and then cartwheel those hands down. Left hand comes down, right arm comes up overhead, lifting through those right fingertips. So we're working the oblique or side here to lift and lengthen, and keeping that left leg nice, like a little bend in that left leg. Lifting and lengthening, breathing here in triangle pose. Good. Lifting those right fingertips up, up, up to the sky, coming up to standing up tall, arms to shoulder height, and then hands to hips. Let's square up our hips towards that left foot. So now we're facing those left toes or that left foot. You're good, Michelle. You can face that way and just turn your left foot there. Yep. Keeping that left foot or that left leg long, and just square up those hips. So bring that right hip forward, left hip back. We're still straightening that left leg. Stand up really tall through the waist and hinge forward over that left leg. We're going to keep the spine nice and long, hands on hips. Pyramid pose. Breathing here. So again, we can feel like our back is to the ocean. It's a no-no, I know. But imagine. And that wave washes over you, folding you forward. And then that undertow kind of lifts you back up, lengthens you out, and then washes over you again. Breathing and lengthening, softening into this stretch. Good. Inhale, come up high. Good. Now we're just going to turn our toes around. So let's see, I was back here. We're just going to turn our toes all the way back around. So our right toes are facing forward again. Left toes are at that 45 degree. And then we're turning our hips. Bring that left hip forward, right hip back so that we're squaring to the front of our mat. Good. That right leg is pretty straight. A little micro bend is all. Nice and long through the waist. And then hinging forward over that right leg. Nice deep stretch here, pyramid pose. Breathing. Staying present in this moment. soften that knee and come up tall. Good. Step the feet together and shake out those legs. Good job. All right, we're going to make our way down onto the floor. So however is most comfortable for you to make your way to the floor. If you have whatever bolster or blanket or pad or block that you used at the beginning of class to lift those hips, if you want to have that close, we might use it for our last final relaxation. So from here, let's just lower ourselves all the way down onto our backs. And our first posture is just going to be reclined cobbler's pose. So bring the soles of the feet together and allow the knees to fall out towards the sides of the room. So we're just softening here. You can place the hands on the belly and breathing deeply, allowing the belly to rise and fall with the breath. For bridge, we're going to keep our chin up away from our chest and our palms down beside the hips, pressing into the floor, tucking the tailbone and peeling the spine up off of the floor as we lift up into bridge. So we're squeezing our glutes and our hamstrings at the top of this here, keeping our chin up away from the chest, breathing. And then slowly coming back down, placing the spine back on the mat, one segment at a time. Good, we'll do that one more time. So take a nice inhale here at the bottom. And then exhale as you tuck the tailbone, peel the spine up off of the floor. Squeezing the glutes and the hamstrings at the top, noticing that you have that gap between the chin and the chest. Those arms out to the sides of the room, palms facing the floor. Keep those feet right where they are. And we're going to exhale, taking both knees over to the right side of the room. Take the gaze out over the left fingertips. Breathing deeply. Inhale to center. Bring those knees back to center. Gaze back to center. And exhale, allowing the knees to go over to the left side of the room. Bringing the gaze out over the right fingertips. way here into our final Shavasana or corpse pose. So if you have that blanket or block or towel nearby, you have an option of placing it under the upper, it's like under the upper back. So imagine that it's just below the shoulder blades. Or if you're a female, it might be like right at the bra line. I don't know. That's an easy place for me. And that opens up the heart and just allow your body to rest over that blanket or block. And if you don't have that bolster, or if this is an uncomfortable position for you, then feel free to just rest there on the floor. And then as you're ready, you can lengthen the legs down the length of the mat, allowing the feet to fall open to the sides of the room. Fingers to gently curl towards the sky. Allowing the tongue to fall down away from the roof of the mouth. Maybe even taking the jaw open and closed or side to side. Remaining right here on your mat for another few moments. I invite you into that mindfulness, being present in every moment, withholding judgment. Allowing yourself just to be here on your mat for another few moments. Begin to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Roll the wrists and the ankles. Bend the elbows and the knees. And as you're ready, come on to your right side. Taking a moment there on your right side, just resting the head into the hands or onto the arms. And then as you're ready, taking your time, making your way up into a seated position. Thank you for sharing your practice with me today. Shalom.